Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good night from wherever you might be watching. Welcome to Passion Speak, where we give those with a passion a platform to speak. Our goal is to enlighten and inspire. My name is Sandra Jennings. Thank you for watching. We broadcast every Thursday at 7:05 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching from YouTube, thank you. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you watched us before, thank you. If it's your first time, come back and be inspired by those who are passionate. And feel free to comment on our live. This is a judgment-free zone. So my guest tonight has a passion for leadership. Tim Selgo retired in 2016 from Grand Valley State University in Michigan after serving 20 years as director of athletics. During his time as AD, he grew the athletic program to experience massive success, including winning 19 national championships and being named the best Division II athletic program in the nation for the majority of his years at the helm. He has also been inducted into 3 sports halls of fame. He is currently an author and consultant traveling the country, speaking to other leaders about winning and maintaining life in the process. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, Sandra, thanks for having me. It's great to be on with you again.
Thank you for coming on. I realize you are such a busy man out there traveling. You would think in retirement you would do a whole lot less, but it's very interesting how much more you do. Plus, as a consultant, are you enjoying the consultant life?
Yeah, I'm very much enjoying being a consultant. I get asked a lot by my athletic director colleagues or other colleagues. They'll look at me and I'll describe my second career here as a consultant and author and speaker. And they'll say, "Oh, you're busier now than you ever were." And I kind of look at them, nah, not really.
No.
You have to be in the shoes of an athletics director, as you well know, to know the hours and the weekends and the nights you work as an athletics administrator, to appreciate the fact that in this second career that I have, I probably rarely work 40 hours a week, which is the right amount for one in one second career. Whether it's 20 to 30 hours a week, it's just about right. But I don't work on the weekends anymore, Sandra. When you're in college athletics, you're going to work at nights and on weekends. And on Friday at noon, I kind of shut my laptop down and happy hour starts at 3 o'clock. And I still view my weekends as gold. Like I don't have to do anything. And it's kind of what the normal 9 to 5 job is like, to have weekends to relax and rest up. And it feels pretty good, to be honest with you. But I do work hard when I'm focused and when I'm working as a consultant or doing some writing or speaking.
I do remember, and disclaimer for those who may be questioning, I did work with Tim in the athletic department at Grand Valley State University for all of those 20 years. In fact, I stayed a little while longer when he left. Um, and I do remember at one time you were gone. It was during our building time when the first couple of years we weren't winning anything at all. And I remember you had felt it was important to be present at all our sports competitions. So you were there when it was only mom and dad of the student athletes and the other team.
Yeah, well, total full disclosure, you were my first hire at the athletics department at Grand Valley State, Sandra. I don't know what that says about our age for the both of us, but that was 1996, April 1996. And you're right. Being a consultant in college athletics for the last 6 years, I've worked with about 45 different schools. And it brings back a lot of memories for me, what it was like at Grand Valley in those early years, those first 4 to 6 years when we were building a program. And it wasn't anything like it is now. And it was, I look back on those years fondly. But as you said, there were numerous times where myself or just a couple others might be the only ones there at an event. I can remember hosting alumni events when we went on the road, and we may get 4 alums. And I remember telling our staff, hey, it doesn't matter. Let's give them our best anyway. Let's, it was good for us. And then later on that we'd have 20 alums at an event, then maybe more. And of course, it was quite different. But in those early years, it was a lot of fun. And I think it speaks to, the passion that we talk about here on your show. If you love what you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't matter how many are listening. If you want to have a passion for something, and we had a passion for building our program into something special. And eventually we got there. And once we got there, of course, we were on top, and that's a different scenario. But the fun was in the building. And a lot of times, boy, I think back to, all of our colleagues, it'd be 2 of us in the car going to a road trip, and we would be talking shop the whole time. What can we do to get better? What do we need to hire for this position in a search we're having? What are we looking for? What's the best fit for us? All those kinds of, what do we need to do with our facilities? How about academics? What can we do to help our student athletes with more academic support? So that was really fun years. And that's been, 26 years ago when we began. And again, it wasn't until about year 5 or 6 we started to hit our stride. But when we hit it and never stopped running.
It was hot. It was hot. But I do remember there were times when there would be nobody in the stadium. I mean, you could look way across the field and point each other out. I mean, it was rough for attendance. We worked hard and long to get those numbers up and instill a winning spirit. It worked.
Well, one of the things that I think is important to remember about that, and this is what I tell my clients all the time, that you have to have patience. We have very little patience in the world today because of instantaneous knowledge and anything we can get from this thing. And but in college athletics, when you're building a program, in business, when you're trying to build a business, in education, where you're trying to master your craft of teaching, it takes years. It takes years to develop that, years to grow and learn and continually improve and get better. And we always looked at it from the long-term viewpoint. We wanted to have long-term success. So in college athletics, what that means is we wanted to build programs. We didn't want to have a one-hit wonder team and then go back in the dumpers again. We wanted to have successful programs year in and year out. To do that, we had to have the right people. And as you know, it took a while, but we got the right people in place, and we were very fortunate to be around some unbelievably successful people, including our good friend Brian Kelly, who is now the head coach at LSU.
All right, go Brian. Yes. There were times when Brian couldn't buy a win. He couldn't buy a win with your money, my money, and his money. He couldn't buy a win, but he hung in there. I have to give him credit. He hung in there until he just kept going. And that is just such a testament. It's such a testament because that program is a stellar program.
And I think for all of our listeners, what that means is, Brian Kelly has had great success at Grand Valley, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and now he's going to do a great job at LSU. I'm quite certain of that. But in each of those stops, he faced some adversity. It was tough sledding at Notre Dame for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd been through that before. I can remember when he was 4-8 at Notre Dame, and all the alumni and my good friends that are Notre Dame fans, they're all over him and they're going to fire him and da. He's been through this before. Because we went through some tough times at Grand Valley. He learned how to deal with that adversity. And you don't panic. You just keep your focused on the process of what you're trying to do to build a program. And, in the case of a college football program, you have to have talent. And in the case of an organization or a business, you need talent. And you always got to keep your eye on attracting the best talent you possibly can for your organization. Mm-hmm. And he has mastered that, because he's had a lot of different coaching staffs each step of the way. And he's learned to hire the best people he absolutely can and let them do their job. And in Division II, where we're at in Grand Valley, it's a little bit harder because you have to wear several hats. You don't have as many people as you do at a Notre Dame or LSU. But that was the fun part too. We all chipped in and we all were in it together as a team. And it wasn't easy at times, like any family. We had our disagreements, we had our challenges, we had, things we had to work ourselves through. But in the end, it was quite a rewarding time to look back on it and to see what we built into what it continues today as the best Division II athletics program in the country.
And some of my best years in a career, my career. I mean, we just had some amazingly fun times. It's just it's amazing how building and how having nothing and watching the numbers inch up very slowly year after year. Oh yeah, now we got 100 spectators. I remember when I first started, we first started looking at our season tickets at Grand Valley, we had 38 season ticket holders. 38. Yeah. And now I don't know what the numbers are now. I haven't been away from the program for a few years, but I'm
it's in the thousands. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, I I believe it. And they're probably, clamoring and calling the office. Hey, is seat number, section 3 still open, or is it closed? Has it been sold? And that's, yeah, I can see that.
You're right. It was fun building. It was challenging at times, and you wondered at times, were we ever going to get this done? But you look back now, of course, and that was a lot of fun because we didn't have much. We didn't have much of a budget. We didn't have, great resources then. They got better, much better now than we had then. But I think you sense the same kind of spirit and feelings and reward from entrepreneurial people that make it successful, whether it's in the business world or somebody takes a nonprofit from nothing and really converts it into something special. That same feeling occurs. I think teachers in the classroom have that same feeling that over time they master the craft of teaching and they become expert teachers. And that's a rewarding thing. And those are things that you can't put a price tag on, because as you look at your scope of your life, and for us, it was, who are we influencing? Well, we're influencing student athletes. We're influencing young people from 18 to 22. We're helping give them some direction in their lives before they head out in the real world. And that's the most fun for me right now, is when I run into our alums and see them and see how they're doing and see their families. It's quite rewarding to be able to experience that. But it's a very busy life in college athletics. Back to your first question. My life is not nearly as busy now. I have 5 grandchildren, all boys. So busy with that. We're going to play some baseball tomorrow, and we're taking the oldest bowling on Sunday. And, so we're busy with that, but it's a different busy, of course. And even though it was quite busy, one of the keys to it all, and we're going to talk about this, is to have some balance in your life. I think all great leaders, when we talk about passion, I'm passionate about being the best leader one can possibly be. And to do that, I am convinced the best leaders have some balance in their lives, whatever that may be. It may be different for different people. They have some balance in their lives. And that was one thing I always felt was important to work on, in large part, Sandra, because my mentors preached that. My father, my college coach, John Wooden, the great coach at UCLA, was kind of a mentor of mine from a distance. I read all his books, and he talked about balance all the time. So that was important to us, that we had that balance as well. And we were able to raise our family here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it's our home now, and we love it. And then, that again, look back very fondly on the last 26 years of being able to do that. But the balance we had amongst all the many wonderful things that we were exposed to here in West Michigan were just invaluable.
One of the things that I most look forward to in the development stages at Grand Valley Athletics was every year, once a year, you would have 2 major events. One of the events was a recruiting retreat where you brought all of our coaches together. You made them get in a room and would spend a whole 8-hour day or longer with a meal or two and talk about the perils and challenges and successes of recruiting student athletes.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Every organization has a core function that they have to master. And college athletics, recruiting the best student athletes possible is critical. Great players make great coaches. Okay. Now, you never stop working and improving as a coach or a teacher of your sport. That's your craft. You always have to improve on that. But in college athletics, it's different than high school. High school, you got to go with the talent that's there. In the pros, you got to go with the talent that they draft and trade for and all that sort of thing. In college, you determine your rosters by who you recruit and sign to come play for you at your school. And I'm always amazed to this day at how few college athletic programs really work at developing as professionals their coaching staff in the world of recruiting, because it's half the battle. It's the lifeblood of our programs. And way back when I was at Toledo as the associate athletics director, we had a 2-day recruiting workshop for our coaches every summer. And as you pointed out, in Grand Valley for 20 straight years, first Monday, Tuesday in June, block your calendar. We're going to have a recruiting workshop. We're going to get in that room. And we're going to talk about how we can recruit better student athletes to Grand Valley. Now, we would bring in guest speakers and we would mix it up from one year to the next. But I do this with my clients now, and they're sort of amazed at how valuable it is. And I'm amazed that how can nobody else be doing this? Mm-hmm. Because that's how I'm convinced it gave us a significant edge, because we stayed focused on improving as recruiters. And, one of the things about professional development that I've always said, no matter what part of your life, whether it's your spiritual life, your profession, your family life, whatever it is, you need to continually try to improve and get better at it. When I played college basketball a million years ago at the University of Toledo, we had a sign before we headed out the door every day of our locker room. And above the door heading out, it said, when you're through improving, you're through. And that's very simple, but it's so appropriate for any of us in any endeavor in life. You have to constantly, the best in the world out there are constantly trying to improve. Nick Saban would become to mind as an example. He's always trying to get better and improve, and he's the best in the business. So that's one thing I think that we did and did well. We just kept working at getting better at the art of recruiting. Try to master the art of recruiting. That's the tough one. Not easy.
Well, the other major event that we would have as a department was just the administrators would get together once a year. And later we started having a mini meeting 6 months in. But once a year, we get in a room and talk about the trends in athletics, talk about the trends at our local college, and talk about the future of student athletes. We didn't touch so much on recruiting. We talked about how to get butts in the seats and what do we need to do to make our program attractive to spectators, which would energize the student athletes and make them want to come when our coaches went out to recruit them. I mean, it was a full program, and I think that attributed a lot to the success of the program.
Well, it kind of speaks a little bit to balance, which I know we're going to get to my book here in a little bit, but you can. I'm going to have more books on balance in the years ahead. I've got a sequel I'm going to be writing this summer to my latest book, and I'm going to continue on with it, because when you look at balance, when things get out of balance, out of whack, it's not good. A most obvious example right now is our politics in the United States. You're either on the extreme right or the extreme left, and they're the loudest out there. And it's like, we need some balance here of different viewpoints. And our country has done its best when we've had some sense of balance. But when you talk about employees and a staff and getting better, you have to strike some balance between focusing on the day-to-day operations, because that's where it happens. That's where the rubber meets the road, and you got to pay attention to the little details. And day in and day out, you've got to come into work with a passion, and that's how you get better. By the same token, throughout the course of the year, you have to step back and, in a more relaxed fashion, look at the big picture. And what do we need to do to get better? Our recruiting workshop was one. You mentioned our administrative staff retreat was another. That we would just sit back and get some balance a couple times a year, stop the day-to-day world from spinning a little bit, if you will, and think of things in more of a brainstorming type fashion. And you need that. Every leader needs that. You've got to have time when you can do that. You have to have time when have some privacy. Ron Van Steelen, who you know very well, our former vice president, Grand Valley, was the first one that pointed that out to me. I was lamenting about how busy I was. We had some searches going on. We're trying to get some things going. It seemed like I was going day to day and doing everything. And he says, what you're talking about is you need some privacy. And that is important. Privacy is important, so you have time to think. Leaders need to have time to think, which, again, comes back to my book on balance, because I believe it's critical that everybody in this busy, noisy world we live in find time every day for quiet and the ability to think and contemplate on things, whatever it may be, your spiritual life, your work life, your family life, whatever. You've got to find time for that. And it's hard when you're in a busy world, which you and I were in for a long time.
Right. And I'm going to bring up something. Looks like we got a comment. Damon Arnold, Dr. Arnold, I'm upset that I missed our phone call. For those of you watching, Damon and Tim and I and another administrator, Walter Moore, we get together probably on a quarterly basis and have, he said Walter snitched. We get together and we have update meetings, what's happening in your life. But Damon, you were bypassed this time because we know you started your new venture at LSU. So, and when we know you have a ball down there in football operations. So, we don't.
I had a chance to visit with Damon last week at the NACTA convention, the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. That's where all the athletics administrators meet annually at our convention. And Damon was there, of course. We got a chance to catch up a little bit, and it was great to see him. And of course, he spent 19 years, I'm going to guess, at Grand Valley. I think Damon came in 2003 or early in 2004, and did a great job with developing and growing and improving our academic support services for athletics for all those years. And then Brian Kelly snatched him away to come to LSU and work on student athlete development. But, it's great. It was great to see him there, and glad he's listening.
Glad. Thanks for dropping in, Damon. Yeah, we'll make sure that we get you on the next call.
You missed a good one, Damon. Just don't tell you.
It's okay. So I brought you on here so we could talk about your book, which is a quick read. Like, I got it off Amazon, I think, and you didn't give. Anyway, you seemed like you dropped off one of those books to me. But anyway, toward the end, it says, when you're through improving, you're through. And that is like my motto, because I always want to be improving. But we talked about retreat so much. We talked about the coaches recruiting retreat, talked about the administrative staff retreat that you used to have, and that you go on the road. Part of your consulting is you consult with other athletic programs, talk about how they can improve. And here's one way, and you do that in a type of a retreat. But when this book is based on a fictional characters, a couple who are starting their life out, and they're starting to add to their family. But it sounds like, as I go through here, that the fictional couple also had some method of setting priorities, talking about what they're going to do, talking about what's right and wrong, talking about their spiritual lives, their money, their family. How did you hatch this couple? Like
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, this is my third book. My first two books. First one, of course, is Anchor Up, which I happen to have a copy right here. All of my books can be found on Amazon. Anchor Up is really the story of building the athletics program in Grand Valley. And then my second book is Make One Play. And I got one signed for you. Good. And the second book, Make One Play, is a story about fundamentals for success in life. But what I wanted to do, Sandra, as you know, I've done a lot of speaking over the years. And I've noticed in the last 10 years, every time when I would speak to a group, I was always asked, how did you find a work-life balance? People knew that an athletics administrator is a busy life, and they knew I had 3 children and now, of course, 5 grandchildren. And they always asked me about that. And it's always been an important part of my life. As I mentioned earlier, for all the mentors in my life are stressed having a balance in your life and so on. And so I realized I wanted to write a book about it. But I think people learn best from stories. I do. And, an example I would give would be in the Bible, Jesus would tell stories to the apostles and to the people to help provide a lesson for them on life and how to live their life better. Well, so I just decided I'm going to write a parable. A parable is just a short story designed to illustrate or teach some truth, a religious principle, or moral lessons. Well, this is a short story designed to teach some truths about having and how to maintain balance in your life, because it's really hard today. Sandra, I won't release our age, but we're the same generation, the baby boomer generation. And there are almost twice as many people in the United States today as there were when we were kids. Not quite, but almost. And so it's a busier world. There's more people, there's more busyness. There's more noise out there. And it's hard to not get caught up in the rat race. But everybody I go to and talk to, they want to know, how did you find a work-life balance? So I wrote a parable, a story, which this book, as you would confirm, can be read in an hour and 15 minutes. I wanted it to be a short story. I wanted it to be a story form that describes what it's like to be a young professional today with both members of the household working full-time, which that's the norm today. And when our parents were that age, when our parents were young professionals, it was not. Generally it was the father working full-time and the mother was at home almost full-time or just working a little bit part-time to pick up some extra money. Well, now both couples work full-time, which helps the balance sheet, and it helps the bank account, but it just creates stress on their time. So how do you manage that? And finding a balance is not easy. You have to work at it. So in this book, again, it's only an hour read. And I think it's a story that people will enjoy. But in the back, I have a section called Game Plan. And in Game Plan, I talk about 8 things to consider that are important in terms of trying to maintain a balance in your life. Those 8 things, just an example, would be increasing responsibilities. When you add to your family, when you get a promotion at work or take a new job, all right? Do you need to change your priorities? Facing life challenges. I'll give you one example that I had to in my life. I mentioned this life as an athletics person. My whole life was college athletics, my first career, and now in my second career as a consultant. But when we started having children, I realized with my work schedule as an athletics administrator and having children, I wasn't going to have very much time for personal fun kinds of things. I wasn't going to be able to go play golf with my buddies whenever I wanted to. You just can't do that. Now my wife Terry and I have almost 40 years here in about 17 days. We've married 40 years. We have more time for that kind of thing now. And between our careers and grandchildren, I can have the guys over and play some cribbage at night, which is a real wild night. I want you to know when we play cribbage. But at that time I couldn't. That wasn't a priority for me. And I knew that during the time my kids were growing up, about that 20 plus years, we had 3 children, that they were growing up, I wasn't going to have much time for that. And I had to find balance somehow. And so I learned to get up early every day. I woke up at 5:30. The kids started getting up for school around 6:30. And, once the first kid got up and got in the shower, it was chaos. I used to describe it as World War III before I even got to work, trying to get them settled and ready to go and get them off school and all that stuff. But I needed that hour. Some people might describe it as getting centered. Okay. I needed that hour of quiet and privacy. For me, that hour meant I read some scripture. I'm a Catholic Christian, and that devotional time was important for me. I would do some reading during that time while I was having my coffee and my juice. Now I have a little more time. I've stretched it into an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours, right? But back then I had to get going, get ready to go to work, but I needed that quiet time. And that really helped me out. I'm an early bird. I go to bed early. I get up early. My wife is a night owl, and she sleeps in a little later. So we've got balance there. See how that's worked for 40 years? We got some balance there. All right. But those are all the kinds of things you got to think about in your daily life. But one thing I would suggest, and I have 8 things in the book that I recommend to people or suggest that they consider doing in their lives to find balance. But the one thing that I think is important is to start your day with some quiet time. And that can be just 10 minutes for some people. That might need to be an hour like it was for me. But you've got to start with some quiet before the noisy world and the world's responsibility and pressures and stresses take over. And for some people, that might mean exercising when they first wake up. I can't do that. I have to wait a while and exercise later in the day. But some people like to do right away, hit the gym and do that. That's fine. My recommendation would be keep the AirPods out, keep the TV off. And if you're a leader, use that time to think. Exercise, let your mind go. Let your mind work and think. And that's how you can find some balance, because when you get into the real world, especially in your leadership role, like I was, everybody wants a little piece of your time, right? Throughout the whole day, you were my gatekeeper. You kept people away from me when it was needed. And you've got to find time for privacy and quiet. And I highly recommend to people to do something, even if it's just for 10 minutes, to have a cup of coffee and think. And for some, that means spending time in prayer. For me, it was that. But that will really help you get your day off to a little better start and find some balance each and every day.
You also say part of that instruction. I was just reading. I'm just get the proper rest each night. Major in the majors.
Yeah.
Like
don't sweat the small stuff, Sandra. Did you ever see that before? I think you had that on your desk, didn't you? Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, and then it's all small stuff.
And it's all small stuff. Now there's some things that are big stuff and majors, of course. And
I'm learning to let things go a lot now, where I didn't have as much of a handle on it during my working years.
Yeah, some of that is experience. Some of it is we're not as stressed. We're a little more relaxed. But that's the thing I'm talking about that you have to work at. You have to work at discerning, okay, what's the small stuff? What's the major stuff? And stay focused on the major stuff. For us, I always felt it was the hiring process or the recruiting process, surrounding yourself with the best people possible. That's one of my fundamentals in Make One Play. That's critical, because that's going to make you successful if you surround yourself with the best people possible. Therefore, that's a major. Okay. So if on a particular day, if the grass at the soccer field wasn't cut quite short enough, but we were hiring a key position, I wasn't going to worry about the height of the grass in the soccer field. Okay. That's important to the soccer coach and their team. I get that. But somebody else is going to have to handle that. We're going to have to address that some other time, because you just can't address everything at once when you've got 20 sports programs like we had. And everybody goes through that in their own world. Whether you're an accountant, whether you're a teacher, whatever, what is a major? And I would suggest to almost every profession out there, a major is spending time with your people, finding the right people for your organization, developing them, providing professional development, and then spending time with them when they need you. Because I think that's far more important than, if the practice schedule is to perfection that particular day.
You say pay attention to one of your points is pay attention to the red flags. Ooh, that is huge.
Yeah,
that is so huge, because we can apply this to every aspect, your personal life, your career, even decisions that you make. Like there were times when we did hires that wasn't exactly, didn't pan out the way we had planned. They did fit into the big scheme of things. Had to make some changes.
But as that relates to having balance in your life, pay attention to the red flags. What are the red flags? Well, when you get worn down, sick, pay attention to that and learn to back off a little bit. And I wasn't great at that. As my wife would tell you, when I was an athletics director, I tell my colleagues now, they get mad at me. When I was an athletics director, I would get probably 2 sinus infections a year. At the end of the football season in the fall, around Thanksgiving, December, I'd be worn out and I get a sinus infection. And then I would around April, May again, near the end of the spring sports season, because that's a very busy time in college athletics. People tend to think football and basketball, but there's more spring sports at any time. And I would get a sinus infection again. I'd have to get on a Z-Pack, and I'd have to take a little time and get some rest. And I don't experience that anymore. In the second career of mine, when you're kind of working by yourself, it's a wonderful thing. But those are the red flags that I'm kind of talking about. When you get short-tempered with people, you and I, we always knew when you and I would get short-tempered with each other, for example. We knew it was time. We got to chill out a little bit. How are we going to do that, right? With the group, when the group is getting stressed out. All right, let's stop. Let's stop everything at 4:00 today and have a TGIF. Let's meet over so-and-so and, have a Pepsi or two and enjoy some time together away from the office. That's important to do. Workers need to do that. That's how you develop teamwork in an organization. Those kinds of things, to do those kinds of things. Now, you mentioned getting proper rest. Okay. A mentor of mine back in my days at Toledo, John Savage, had a phrase. He used to say, work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, just don't confuse the two. Well, that's true. If you're working hard 8 hours, you're going to get a lot accomplished. Then make sure you get the right rest at night. But if you're cutting off work early and hanging out and going to the pub every night, that's not so good. Eventually that's going to catch up to you too. So you got to find a balance of having some of that fun time and relaxing time, but it's got to balance the hard work, not become a problem for you.
We have a comment from a Facebook user who didn't click on the link, so their name's not showing. Oh my God, 2 of my faves from my GVSU days. Thanks for watching, whoever you are. Let us know who you are, so Tim can shout you out. So this fictional couple, which I can find some similarities, but I'm like, that's not Tim. So I know this is not totally you, but they didn't have time. Like, she was a full-time a career person. He was a full-time, in the book, he was a full-time career person. They had just had a new baby. He had a very demanding schedule. And I noticed there wasn't much time for friends and socializing outside. Do you have a thought on, from a couple's perspective, on whether you can have friends outside of the marriage? Is it healthy? Do you limit? I mean, I have my opinion, I guess, but do you have a thought on it?
Yeah, no, it's important. There's a lot of things important in life. Family's important. Work's important. Your spiritual life is important. Your health is important. Your finances are important. Having some fun in life is important. So all these things, and how do you balance that, right? And I always suggest to people. I did learn something on LinkedIn several years ago, and it said when you're thinking about having balance in your life, think about it in larger chunks of time. In other words, don't try to have the perfect balance every day. You get up, you have your quiet time, you work hard, you exercise at noon, the noon hour, then you come back and work hard some more, then you come home and have dinner with your family and spend some time again. That those days are not necessarily the consistent norm. In some occupations they might be, but in many they're not. Certainly in ours it wasn't. We had to work at nights, we had to work on the weekends, so we had to learn to balance it in larger chunks. So over a course of a week or two, know when you're stressed out, and then find some time. As you know, my wife Terry was a great for me to balance that. She's a very social person. I mean, there were times when I think it is important to have friends outside the workplace. Absolutely. For us, it's been a wonderful treasure in our lives because we met so many friends through our children's school and our church that were not affiliated with Grand Valley. Therefore, when my career as an athletics director, when I wrapped that up 6 years ago, we had a wealth of friends and we're doing stuff with them all the time. Last night we went out with them, and then we have more time for that, of course, now. But back then, when I was busy, and we were really doing well and teams were going to championships, my wife went to some of those things by herself. But I would meet her at the end of a game. We'd get done with a game, and at 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'd meet her at so-and-so's house or something. And an hour later, I'd be falling asleep in one of the chairs at their house. But yeah, it's important to do those kinds of things, but there's a priority there. And, you got to take care of your family. You got to take care of your profession and what you're doing. If you're trying to be successful at it, you should be. All right. And then that other stuff will find its way. But again, pay attention to the red flags. When you're feeling burnout, when you're feeling as if everything is work, get away from it. Everybody uses the term unplug today, okay? Mm-hmm. Because of this, right? They want to unplug from this because this is attached to them all the time. It takes discipline to do that. You have to have discipline in your life. You have to learn to shut it off and realize, the world's going to keep going on whether I check my text messages every 6 minutes or not. It's going to be fun. And so but that's what I said in the beginning. You have to work at this. You have to be mindful of trying to achieve a balance in your life. Why? Over the course of time, the most successful people in any occupation, certainly the most successful leaders, work at having a balance in their life somehow, some way. Some people like to go fishing. Some people like to knit. Some people like me like to read. Some people like recreational sports, exercise, whatever that may be. You've got to find those things that you like to do that get your mind off of work. And again, for me, I love to read. During the sports season, I would read non-sports books to get my mind off sports. In the summertime, I would read sports books or books on leadership, that kind of thing, to help grow and develop as a professional. But anyway, those are just some of the tricks of the trade of finding balance in one's life. And our book is full of them. And I see our good colleague, Chris Barbie.
He says, great to see and hear your voices. Thanks for sharing the message. Got to run now to make it for my 8 p.m. cribbage game.
Well, tell Chris I'll be down in Charlotte this fall, and we'll have to get together and play some cribbage. And we might have to play a high stakes game for $1 a game or so. So make sure you start saving up your single dollar bills, Chris.
Good to see you, Chris, too. Let's see who else. Oh, Penny. My friend Penny, balance, so important. Penny knows a little bit about balance as well. Thank you for watching. She watches on a regular basis, and I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. And I in a audience format, what I'd love to hear from other people is how do they find balance? I just came from the Athletic Directors Convention, and I moderated a roundtable on this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the roundtables, we posed 3 questions for them. How do you find balance in your daily life? What's your barometer when you know life's getting out of balance? Who helps you get back on track? You know, it might be a spiritual advisor, might be your spouse or partner, might be a coach or teacher that helps get your life back in balance, right? You got to have people like that in your life that keep you in check. For me, as I mentioned earlier, this is my wife, Terry. She, helped me relax. She knew I needed to relax. She encouraged me to start bowling again at age 45. After 7 years of my nose to the grindstone in Grand Valley, I needed something every Wednesday night to get away from it, get my mind off of it. So you need people like that. And it's important to share with one another what you do, because what I find as my ways of achieving balance in life are different than yours, than the other person's. Everybody's got to do it a little differently because we're all a little differently. A good friend of mine, we're in a men's Bible study prayer group at our church together, and he and I had coffee today from 7 to 8 a.m. Just talked about some things in our spiritual lives, and he got on his bike, his recumbent bike, and rode it out to Grand Haven and back today. Okay, now for people listening that don't know that, that's a 32-mile bike ride one way, and that was for him. He and 3 other guys once a week, they do that. And that, when you do something like that, you get your mind off of work. You're not thinking about work all the time. And that's the balance you need. As much physically he's getting exercise, but mentally he's getting his mind off things. And so I encourage whatever it is you like to do, what you're passionate about, as passion speaks to, find it and follow that passion.
We got another comment. It's great seeing both of you, and you too, Damon, and hearing your story. Now I have to go out and buy your book, Ginger Randall. Hey, Ginger.
Great. Ginger, good to hear from you. I thought of you the other day. I can't remember why. I'm getting too old to remember all those little things, but I remember thought came to me. I must have saw somebody named Ginger and thought of you, Ginger. So fondly think of our times together, working together at Grand Valley. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I appreciate you watching too, Ginger. So you were talking about balance, and I had a thought. When we used to do retreats, we would discuss generations. And I don't know, speaking generationally, I don't know if the newer generation, the millennials and the XYs and the Z's or whatever other generations there are, I don't know if they have it as bad as we had it. I think they got a little bit better handle on their balance than we did. I think they will work for a job that maybe doesn't require 40 hours. Maybe it'll give them less pay, but I think they're saying to heck with it. My time is more important. My sanity is more important. And I have to admire them.
I would agree, Sandra. And I think I do admire it. Last week at this convention, there was a great program on the different generations. I can't remember the man's name, but he gave a terrific presentation of the baby boomers to the millennials, the Gen Zs, Gen Xs, Gen Ys, and whatever the current ones are. I can't even remember right now, but there's a new name for it. And because, the people at this convention are working with 17, 18-year-olds coming to college, right? You better figure out that generation. You better know what they want. Now, I've always said one of the keys to recruiting college athletics, what do 17-year-olds want? Find out what they want and offer it, deliver it, right? And so the differences are really, and I'll give an example to show you what you just mentioned, Sandra. We're all baby boomers. And so our parents' generation were the children of they're the greatest generation ever, as Tom Brokaw stated, the World War II generation that built this country, right? They came back and built this country, and they did a lot of great things. Then we came along, we baby boomers, the largest segment of the population, right? And we influenced everything. We influenced the economy. We influenced what people were buying, fashion, everything. And for us, it was go, go, go. Let's get ahead. The more money we make, the more things we have. The more, advancements in our careers, the more we move up the ladder, the greater we will be in the eyes of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drove a lot of baby boomers, and it did, in a capitalistic society, that's an advantage. However, the current generation is growing up, maybe seeing that as, you know what, that's not what we want. That's not everything it's cracked up to be. They've seen a lot of pain along the way with that.
Mm-hmm.
And an example would be my own son is 29, Danny, and he's a software developer, and he's 29 and doing quite well. And he's, he makes a pretty good living as a software developer, and he's got his 1-bedroom apartment, and he's fine with it. He's good. He doesn't want to have a house with all the,
and he's good with it.
Yeah. And he's fine with it. And we bought our first house, and we were 27. And we were ready to move up to the next one shortly thereafter. Yeah, he's good with his 1-bedroom apartment. He's got a nice apartment. He's fine. He doesn't have to mow the lawn. He doesn't have to do any of that. And and so it's a different generation. Doesn't mean we're right, they're wrong, or they're right and we're wrong. It's just the way it is. And everybody's got its positives to it, of course. And I personally admire, and Sandra, we worked with a lot of young people at Grand Valley. And the generations behind us, the millennials, the Gen X, Y, Zs, the current generation, I believe they are much more community minded than we were. We were interested in ourselves, growing our careers, how we could move up the ladder. And I'm speaking, of course, in generalities now, not everybody.
Right.
Their generations they look out for the common good. And I think that's okay. I think, in a society, a busy society that we have now, we need people that care more about the common good than maybe moving up the ladder. Mm-hmm. So, there's a balance in everything, and maybe their generation is balancing out our generation, and in a good way. And I hope that can be the case.
I do. I think because the baby boomers, they put the aholic and workaholic. I mean, we would grind out some 14 days and come home and raise the red flag and say, I did 14-hour days. I worked hard. And the generations behind us are like, y'all are crazy. There's no way that's a dead end. There's no balance in that. And I think they got a clue. They got a clue quicker than what we might have gotten it.
Yeah.
I'm really, really impressed by it.
We can learn from them. And I think that's important at our stage in life as baby boomers. We're all senior citizens now, that we should learn from young people. There's the generation gap, right? Mm-hmm. I was chuckling, talking to some guys the other day. The same people in the 60s and 70s that were against the establishment and, they wanted to beat the man, and always being rebellious types. They're now the most conservative old people talking about these young kids today there ever was. And hey, you were that young kid one day. Well, what's wrong with what they're doing? Remember, our parents would lament about rock and roll. Oh, that crazy music, that rock and roll music, it's evil. And now everybody sings 60s and 70s songs. Every generation does.
Yes. Anyway, it's been awesome talking to you. Your book, Moms and Dads Eat the Brown Bananas, it's a book about balance. And Tim hangs out on Twitter and Amazon. Amazon, where his books are, and Twitter because he likes the flow of it. I mean, you can find them elsewhere, but those are his favorite spots. And we appreciate you, Tim. I definitely love the book. It was a story form, and it got all the messages. Plus, you managed to work in there a whole lot of concepts from John Wooden. We gotta love him. Rest in peace. And I made me even bring out my my autographed book of John Wooden from when you visited his home in California and brought it back. Ta-da! Lucky me, huh? You there?
That middle and on the top there, on the top is a photo of Terry and I with Coach Woodman. He was 95 years old. You can't see it real well on the screen, but that's a treasurer in my office, and he signed the book. They call me Coach for me, and again, he was a mentor of mine from a distance. And I think people need to, young people especially, they need to find their mentors. We old people act like old people a lot, but we've been through a lot of life experiences, and a lot of things we've been through can be of help to young people today. And I hope I'm always available at Tim Selgo on Twitter. DM me. I'd be more than happy to visit with anybody about anything. I love to talk about life, especially sports. So
you'll even go and head up a retreat at their place of employment for all of you entrepreneurs who have businesses. Call Tim in and have a leadership retreat. It'll be awesome.
How about wasn't that not a classic old man move where my phone alarm went off because I got to remind myself to do something here at 8:00?
Oh. Well, that means you're 1 minute late. So, but I appreciate you coming on and talking about everything. I always value your leadership, and we're going to be in touch, and we're going to promise Damon the next call we have, he's going to be invited. And
thank you, Sandra. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate all the folks watching today. It was great to hear from some good old friends, and hope they're all doing very, very well. But book number 4 is coming out in the next half a year. So we'll have to do this again and talk about book number 4. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
That's my teaser.
All right. Passion Speak signing out.